Good evening, and welcome to the Kennedy Center. Please take a moment and silence all electronic devices, as the show will be starting momentarily. Audio and video recording is prohibited in this evening's performance. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Good evening, and welcome to the Kennedy Center. And now, our host for this evening's performance, from NPR Music's Alt Latino, Felix Contreras.
Hey fam, how you doing? Good evening and welcome. Such an honor for me. This is going to be an amazing show. You guys are in for a treat. As a lifelong fan of this music and NPR's longtime ambassador for Latin music and culture, I am thrilled to host the 2024 National Endowment for the Arts Jazz Masters Tribute Concert here at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. Now, I'd like to thank the National Endowment for the Arts and its partner, the Kennedy Center, for bringing this annual event to us this evening. Tonight's show is the 41st anniversary celebration of the NEA Jazz Masters, right? So let me give you a bit of history. The fellowships date back to 1982, when the National Endowment for the Arts decided to publicly acknowledge the leading figures of this great African-American-born art form. That first year, the honorees were, check this out, Dizzy Gillespie, Roy Eldridge, and Sun Ra, right? In the years after, the title of NEA Jazz Master was conferred on Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, Sonny Rollins, Miles Davis, Sarah Vaughan, and numerous others. That's a roll call of legends, right? 2024 marks the 6th time the NEA has collaborated with the Kennedy Center to present this prestigious award. Now tonight, as part of Jazz Appreciation Month, we celebrate 4 individuals who stand on the shoulders of the legends I just mentioned. We salute Gary Bartz. The archetype of modern alto saxophonist. In the 1960s, he captured the spirit of tenor saxophonist John Coltrane, his intensity and beauty, and brought it to the alto. But he never sounded like Coltrane. This genre-defining innovator has his own brilliant fingerprint. Now, you hear him play a single note, and it's instantly apparent. That's Gary Bartz. Willard Jenkins is a Johnny Appleseed for jazz. Everywhere he goes as author, critic, radio host, and festival curator, he plants the seeds for the music. And he's been doing this for more than 50 years, growing jazz scenes across the Midwest and right here in Washington, D.C. He is a beloved crusader for the music, and I'm honored to say that he and his wife, Susan, are treasured friends. Amina Claudia Myers. Yeah. She carries forward the legacy of her Southern roots as well as her years in Chicago and New York. There's no pretending. There's no pretending with this pianist, organist, and singer. Her music is real. She may put across an old Bessie Smith tune or conduct her own improvisational suite for chorus, pipe organ, and percussion. Always, her sound is stirring and universal in its ability to touch hearts. Terence Blanchard. Terence is one of the foremost trumpeters in jazz and a lot more. He is a band leader, an opera composer, an arts administrator, and he has scored dozens of films and TV shows. From his early days with Lionel Hampton and Art Blakey to his recent performance with the New York Philharmonic at Lincoln Center, he has racked up a formidable list of firsts. He has an unquenchable appetite for new challenges and brings an inspiring level of excellence to everything he does. Okay, so there you have it. Let's hear it for our 2024 class of NEA Jazz Masters. You know, it's often said that the mark of a true jazz musician is having one's own voice. From Louis Armstrong onward, that's always been the thing. Our honorees, 3 musicians and an advocate, exemplify this quality to an unusual degree. Through their work, they express who they are, and they have followed their own muses in unexpected and unpredictable ways, and we're so lucky to have each one of them with us tonight. Gary Bartz is our first honoree this evening. One of the most astonishing instrumentalists of the last 60 years, he embodies the world of Black American music. Raised in Baltimore by music-loving parents, Bartz was immersed. All right, let's hear it for Baltimore. Come on. He was immersed in sound. He was inspired by a Charlie Parker record at age 6. He took up the saxophone at age 11, and he made fast progress. Moving to New York in 1958, he went on to work with Art Blakey, Max Roach, McCoy Tyner, Miles Davis, and other legends. He revered them, and they revered him, because Bartz has a sound and approach like no other. Whether playing an African-American spiritual like Deep River, or a noir ballad like Laura, or a Charlie Parker classic, or groundbreaking funk with his own Into troupe, Gary Bartz conveys passion and beauty. He is a virtuoso whose music always comes from the heart and never forgets the blues. His music grabs you, and there's no accident that his recordings have been sampled by A Tribe Called Quest and other seminal hip-hop acts. He is a universal inspiration, connecting generations and proving that this music has no boundaries. Music is his religion, he says, and you can hear it in every note as he points the way ahead. Now let's watch a short film about this very special musician.
Music for me is the only religion. It's nature's religion. Music for me is the only religion. It's nature's religion in Baltimore, given to us. September 26th, 1940. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. My family would go to September 26th, 1940. On Sundays, my family would go to my grandmother's house. My uncle was going to listen to had all these records. When I was 6, I put on a record, and that was the highlight of my life. Was going to listen to these records. And when I was 6, I put on a record I didn't know what it was that changed my life, and that was a Charlie Parker record. And I heard this instrument. I didn't know what it was. Didn't know it was a man, woman. Whatever he was doing, that's what I wanted to do. I fell in love, and I said, "This is what I want to do." I didn't know anything. Whatever he was doing, that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know what it took, what it was. I didn't know anything. I just said, "I want to do that." I was 6 when I started begging for a saxophone. Every time, Christmas, birthdays, whatever, what would you like? I was 6 when I started begging for a saxophone. 5 years, finally. Every time, Christmas, birthdays, whatever, what would you like? A saxophone. I started going out to the clubs, to jam sessions when I was 14. My dad started taking me out. The first one was with Sonny Stitt. I'm down there, the place is packed, and Sonny Stitt is playing his butt off. And he gets on the mic and he says, "Well, ladies and gentlemen, I understand we have a young man that would like to come up and play with us." And I'm saying, "Oh, wow, this is really going to be great." And he called my name. I said, "Oh, my God." So I go up and play with Sonny Stitt, and that generation of musicians, they tested you. And he took me through all the keys on the blues. Fortunately, I didn't know one key from the other, so I went everywhere he went because I could hear, and that's where listening comes in. Everywhere he went, I went because I could hear it, because I'd been listening. That's why I tell my students now, listening is more important than playing. I was accepted at Juilliard and went there in 1958. The jazz scene in New York was just unbelievable. I learned how to build a solo working with Art Blakey. I learned how to hear better because we never had a rehearsal. One night we were getting ready to go on. They were announcing us. We were in the wings. Lee came up to me. He says, Gary, you know this song? He plays this song. I said, no. He said, we're getting ready to play this. And we went out and we played it, so I had to learn that song on stage. I no longer feared going anywhere, playing anything with anybody. In 1970, I got a call from Miles Davis. Max Roach and Miles Davis were the best band leaders I could ever ask for. If you were in Miles's band, you were in his family. You could do no wrong. You could miss gigs. You could play horrible. You could do what, but he wanted you in that band. You were in the band. Miles could hear so good. He used to say, I love your mistakes. Now you're trying to play so that no one hears your mistakes. He heard them anyway. That's how good he could hear. He could hear the future. And that's what we have to do as musicians. We have to hear the future because we have to hear that which nobody's ever heard before. Once you can tap in to what and how you hear, you'll sound like yourself. You won't sound like anybody else. As you get older, you realize music, you'll never learn music. You just keep studying it and doing the best you can. All you can do is create.
Please welcome Gary Bartz on saxophone, Mark Terry on piano, Paul Bolenbach on guitar, James King on bass, and on drums, Casa Overall.
Sadness must leave this room tonight. Sadness, sadness, gotta leave this room tonight. Bad thoughts, gotta leave this room. Leave this room tonight. Evil, 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 bad thoughts, gotta leave. Sadness, gotta leave this room. Gotta leave this room tonight. We always do this song. It's called No More, the Magic Song. And It's like our prayer. It's like our song, really. We do it for us to clear the room of bad spirits. And we don't know what went on before we came here, so we need to cleanse. So that's why we do that. We hope you enjoy it. Rivers I have seen, rivers I have known, ancient than the world, older than the flood. I've known rivers, I've known rivers, all through Africa and North America, South America and Australia. I've known rivers, I've known rivers. I've known rivers in the north and the south. I've known rivers in the east and the west. I've known rivers all over this world. I've sailed some and seen the rest. I've known rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers, and my soul has run deep like the rivers, the rivers, the rivers, like the have seen, rivers I have known, ancient than the world, older than the blood. I've known rivers, I've known rivers, all through Africa, North America, South America, and Australia. I've known rivers, I've known rivers. I've known rivers in the north and the south. I've known rivers in the east and the west. I've known rivers all over this world. I've sailed some and seen the rest. I've known rivers, I've known rivers. I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers, and my soul has grown deep like the rivers, the rivers, the rivers, like the song of loving kindness was written for everyone and everything that ever was. Song of loving kindness was written for everyone and everything that ever was. The song of loving kindness was written for everyone and everything that ever was. The song of loving kindness was written for everyone, was written for everything, written for everyone and everything that ever was. The song of loving kindness, written for everyone and everything that ever was. Thank you. Thank you.
Gary Bartz, and now
We had 9 minutes, so we went over. But I'd like to say thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to the NEA for this award, and I'd like to remind the NEA that what they're doing, our community was the first gatekeepers that would tell us who our masters were. The African American community knew who Louis Jordan, Louis Armstrong, John Coltrane. They knew who Duke Ellington was before America knew. So they were the first gatekeepers. So you have a really serious, hard job to do if you're trying to follow. So just keep in contact with the African American community and you'll know who the masters are. But But I want to thank them very much, and they're doing a good job. The problem is that once the government took over, business interests came along with that. And so we have to be very careful. But you're doing a good job, so I thank you very much.
Please welcome the chair of the National Endowment for the Arts, Maria Rosario Jackson.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. I'm delighted to add my welcome to our Jazz Masters, distinguished guests, Justice Sotomayor, members of Congress, to all of you in this beautiful theater, and to all tuning in virtually. I'm so pleased that you've joined us in the celebration of the recipients of the 2024 NEA Jazz Masters Fellowships. This is our nation's highest honor in jazz. All of us at the National Endowment for the Arts work to shine a light on the immense value that the arts bring to our lives and our communities, and nights like this allow us to do just that. It's wonderful to work once again with our partners here at the Kennedy Center in organizing this program. Many thanks to Kennedy Center President Deborah Rutter and her stellar team. Tonight, as we honor the members of the new class of NEA Jazz Masters, we also think back to the jazz greats that the NEA has been honoring for more than 4 decades, including NEA Jazz Masters who passed away this last year. 2021 NEA Jazz Master Albert Tootie Heath. (2015) NEA Jazz Master Carla Bley. 2014 NEA Jazz Master Richard Davis. 2006 NEA Jazz Master Tony Bennett. And 1994 NEA Jazz Master Ahmad Jamal. One can't help but be inspired by and in awe of all of those who've written, performed, nurtured, and developed jazz over time. As a child, my father introduced my brother and me to the sounds and importance of jazz and jazz musicians, and he did this as a way of connecting us to our family's African American roots and culture. He wanted us to make sure that we knew we had a connection to this art form, an art form which has endured across generations and has been embraced globally. And it's been embraced thanks to the dedication of its gifted stewards, 4 of whom we celebrate tonight. I became the 13th chair of the National Endowment for the Arts a little over 2 years ago, but my entire career has focused on understanding and elevating arts and culture as critical elements of healthy communities where all people can thrive. And one of my core beliefs is that none of the things that we say we aspire to as a nation of opportunity and justice are possible without the arts, the experiences and expressions that allow us to see our shared humanity. And there's extraordinary opportunity in understanding the arts comprehensively and holistically, recognizing their intrinsic value and also understanding how they contribute to so many aspects of our lives. Our health, education, economy, and the vibrancy of our cities, towns, and communities, and more. The arts, including the music we're about to experience tonight, can help us all to heal, to connect, and to thrive. 2001 NEA Jazz Master Wynton Marsalis puts it this way. He says that jazz has proven itself to be endlessly adaptable to the cross currents and often startling phenomena of modern life. Comedy, tragedy, high-mindedness, and down-homeness, sophistication, pathos, and joys too. Ours is a time when some of the most fundamental ways of our lives are being questioned, and that makes this music more important than ever, because jazz is an art form that depends on questioning. and on challenging prevailing assumptions. Wynton reminds us that creative process practiced by jazz musicians is something that can help make us whole and can be central to helping us reaching our full potential. The individuals that we celebrate tonight have committed their lives to the creative process and all that it makes possible. It is the National Endowment for the Arts' distinct honor to share their compelling stories with you tonight. Our next honoree is the recipient of the 2024 A.B. Spellman NEA Jazz Master's Fellowship for Jazz Advocacy, Mr. Willard Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins has spread the gospel of jazz for more than half a century as an author, radio broadcaster, festival director, arts administrator, and educator. Raised in Cleveland, he fell under the spell of his dad's collection of jazz LPs. Later, while attending Kent State University, he began reviewing jazz performances for the Black Student newspaper. He then took his music writing skills to the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and he spent years developing jazz service programs in the Midwest. In 1989, he moved to Washington, D.C., taking his advocacy to the national level. He worked to secure a seat for jazz at the same table as symphonic music, opera, and dance. Willard Jenkins has been artistic director of DC Jazz Festival since 2015, and for 35 years, he's hosted his own radio show on WPFW, based here in Washington. During this time, he's never stopped writing. Musicians understand the depth of his knowledge, so when the legendary pianist Randy Weston embarked on writing his autobiography titled African Rhythms, he asked Mr. Jenkins to be his co-author. And Willard credits this collaboration with Randy Weston for influencing him in so many ways. Mr. Jenkins has observed that Black music is at the core of American music, but writing about Black music often goes to others. And to help remedy the situation, he assembled his book titled Ain't But a Few of Us, Black Music Writers Tell Their Story. The book is a collection of his interviews with a multitude of African American writers and includes an anthology of writing on jazz by the likes of Amiri Baraka, Stanley Crouch, and A.B. Spellman, whose name is on the award that Willard Jenkins receives tonight. Mr. Spellman, I think, is here. And now, please enjoy this video about our great jazz master, Willard Jenkins.
I can't say that I have an earliest memory of music. It was always there. You know, if it wasn't the hi-fi, it was the radio. You know what I mean? It was always there. I began writing about jazz as a student at Kent State University. I was no longer under the same roof as my father's record collection. So now I had to get my own record collection. And that's when the thirst really began to grow. My roommates and my brothers, my Omega brothers, became my first audience. When I graduated from Kent, my father had become aware, because I'd shared some of the things I'd written, he'd become aware of the fact that I was interested in writing about the music. And so I came down to the Plain Dealer and I talked to Bob Roach, and he decided to engage me as a writer about jazz. The regional arts agency that represented Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio, that was formerly known as Great Lakes Arts Alliance. Great Lakes Arts Alliance said, whoa, we want to have a jazz program. Let's institute a jazz program. So the hang fly attitude that I had at the beginning, it paid off because they engaged me to run this new program. Unbeknownst to me in the beginning, They had been having merger conversations with the Regional Arts Agency of the Upper Midwest states. And they merged and they became Arts Midwest. A man named David Freyer was to be the director of this new agency, Arts Midwest. He determined that, okay, well, we're going to make this jazz program, we're going to make it a core program of Arts Midwest. And we spent 4 years there developing the jazz program at now Arts Midwest. I left Arts Midwest to take an opportunity in Washington, D.C. at the National Jazz Service Organization in 1989. It was an opportunity to bring some of the things that we had found to be successful and were developing in their success at Arts Midwest to bring them on a national level. Audience development has always been one of my biggest platforms because that's the way we sustain what we do, by developing our audience, because the audience so often dictates the capacity of what we do. And then when I got to DC, I met a man named Tom Porter who invited me to WPFW to check it out, to be interviewed. And eventually I got my own program and been there ever since. 35 years at WPFW. From Witten's album Crescent City Christmas. Preceding that, we were in Trinidad. Randy Weston influenced me in so many ways, working with him on his autobiography. And one of the great fascinations that came out of my relationship with Randy was not only the African roots, but also the involvement of jazz musicians, or the engagement of jazz musicians who, of course, learned and developed their craft here in this country, but the engagements that jazz musicians had in Africa, like Randy. Black music is at the core of American music, and you don't find as many black music journalists, writers, critics, and whatnot. And I just began having some very productive interviews with various black jazz writers and various black music writers, that it seemed like this might be a book. What it is writers expressing their story of how they achieved bylines, writing about this music specifically and about music in general. And then in 2015, the opportunity came to be artistic director of the DC Jazz Fest.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 18th annual DC Jazz Fest.
We're bringing jazz to the very young through our various programs. That's the main thrust of our jazz education program. One of the beauties of presenting this event in the nation's capital is the fact that we have a robust community of foreign embassies. Every country has its core of exceptional jazz musicians. And as I say, this music it's an international language, jazz is.
It's Ancient Future Radio from now till midnight. Stay tuned.
Please welcome the African Rhythms Alumni Sextet, including several musicians who played with Randy Weston over the years. Alto saxophonist T.K. Blue, trombonist Kumba Frank Lacey, pianist Sharp Radway, bassist Alex Blake, African percussionist Chief Baba Neil Clark, and drummer Camille Gaynor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we are extremely blessed, honored, and privileged to represent for his induction into the NEA Jazz Masters, Willard Jenkins. Yes, please. We are definitely joined at the hip. In fact, our birthdays are only one day apart. And we share a common bond, Willard and the African Rhythms family. We all have been influenced by the great gentleman that was mentioned earlier. He's a huge inspiration, a mentor for us, a role model. His compositions, his legacy, his musical legacy has left a rich, how can I say, repertoire for us to draw from. Willard has requested 2 songs of Dr. Weston, Berkshire Blues and High Fly. Chief Baba Neal Clark, Camille Gaynor, Alex Blake, Sharp Radway, Coomba Frank Lacey, yours truly, TK Blue, Willard Jenkins,
Please welcome to the stage Willard Jenkins to accept his award.
Well, y'all gotta forgive me, okay? Because being an advocate
means a variety of things. And so there have been a lot of stops along this road. So I have a long list of thank yous. So please forgive me. First and foremost, none of this would be possible without the indomitable Susan Jenkins. And much love to my family out there in the audience. I'm extremely proud and humbled to be accepting this 2024 Jazz Masters Advocacy Award in the name of A.B. Spellman. Who is in the house tonight, by the way. Or as he informed me when we were in Santa Fe at the New Mexico Jazz Festival on speaking engagement last fall, I'm proud to be receiving a Spellman. I want to start by thanking A.B. for his sterling example, and thanks to Ann Meyer Baker, director of the NEA Music Program. This advocacy journey for me began with my mom, Ann Louise Jenkins, and my dad, Willard Jenkins' record collection, and my cohort in jazz listening, my younger brother, George. And later, by way of my dad's intro to seriously jumpstart my writing career at the Cleveland Plain Dealer. My jazz advocacy truly escalated during my undergrad days at Kent State University. Special thanks to my Omega brothers for being my first listening audience. And to my dear brother Mike Brown for arranging my first radio show hosting stint, which was a show called Exploration Jazz on WKSU. And thanks to KSU President Todd Dicon and KSU Black Alumni Chapter President Silas Ashley. For my subsequent stints on jazz radio, major thanks to WKSU, WABQ in Cleveland, KFAI in the Twin Cities, a minute at WWOZ in New Orleans, and especially WPFW here in DC. And for that, WPFW, I got to thank Tom Porter, Bob Daughtry, and Katia Stitt especially. On the arts presenting side, my work wouldn't have been possible without my cohorts in founding the Northeast Ohio Jazz Society. Big thanks to Mike Brown, Jim Szabo, and Dr. Larry Simpson. Eventually, that led to my tenure as artistic director of Tri-C Jazz Fest in Cleveland for 18 years, thanks again to Larry Simpson, Cliffy Jones, Terry Pontremoli, Beth Rutkowski, Brian Bethune, and Steve Enos. Thanks to Howie Smith and Dr. Ed London for engaging me for my first teaching gig, jazz teaching gig at Cleveland State University. My arts administration years provided invaluable lessons in the inner workings of multi-arts disciplines. And for that, many thanks to Arts Midwest, and especially to David Freyer, Gene Loxo, and Susan Chandler, and thanks to the late Dr. Reginald Buckner. Our work at Arts Midwest gave birth to the Jazz Journalists Association, JJA, of which I'm a proud founding member, and for the JJA, many thanks to Howard Mandel. Thanks to the former National Jazz Service Organization, and particularly to my staff colleagues, Wayne Self, Eugene Holly Jr., Sarah Donnelly, and John Murph, and Murr Coffin. And to my dear friends at New England Foundation for the Arts, Holly Sidford, Rebecca Blunk, and Stephanie Ancona, with whom we launched the pioneering Lila Wallace Reader's Digest National Jazz Network of Presenters. Thanks to Paxton K. Baker and my friends and colleagues at BET Jazz for 10 great years hosting, writing, and producing programming. Special thanks to my dear brother, you just heard him represented here royally, my dear brother and mentor, NEA Jazz Master Randy Weston. Randy's music you just heard, and thanks to Randy for believing in me as we journey toward Randy's autobiography, African Rhythms.
Thanks to Ken Wissaker at Duke University Press for believing in that project and subsequently for publishing my current book, Ain't But a Few of Us. Thanks to Mickey Shepard and Maureen Knighton at 651 Arts for engaging me for presenting projects, and to Jennifer Scott at Weeksville Heritage Center in Brooklyn, where I stretched my oral historian muscles. Thanks also to Savage Content, host of my weekly online trivia contest. Check it out now, Jazzology. And a huge thank you to Sonny Sumter and the staff and board of the DC Jazz Festival for your indispensable support for my ongoing work as artistic director of DC Jazz Festival. Thanks to the Kennedy Center. Thank you all for coming out.
Please welcome Deborah Rutter, president of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts.
Good evening. What a great, great evening we're having together. It's so exciting to be gathered here together and for us at the Kennedy Center to be partnering with the National Endowment for the Arts on this fantastic tribute to jazz. Under the leadership of our current artistic director, Jason Moran, and previously under the direction of the late NEA jazz master, Dr. Billy Taylor, jazz thrives here at the Kennedy Center. And you know it. It has grown from a handful of shows in the 90s to main stage performances, cabaret series, school initiatives, lectures, and more that touch every genre and every aspect of our programming and culminates in this fantastic evening. In fact, in the last 2 months, our stages have been home to jazz-infused opera of the Washington National Opera and a festival exploring the intersection of hip-hop and jazz. In addition to all of the performances in our actual jazz series, it is everywhere here. I think it's safe to say there isn't a single genre which doesn't have notes of jazz heard at some point and throughout our season. Now, this year in particular, jazz is notable as we celebrate the legacy of one of the greats. The Duke changed the way we hear music. Our Ellington 125 programming confirms that it for a whole new generation. And as we pay homage to the greats here tonight, we also celebrate the new voices shaping the sound of jazz today. Jazz Ahead is our pre-professional program for developing jazz artists. It was created by NEA jazz master Betty Carter and brought to the Kennedy Center in 1998. You're doing very well. By Dr. Billy Taylor, and it has been getting great results ever since. In fact, some of its alumni are here with us tonight. Earlier you heard Mark Carey and Gary Bartz, and later we'll hear performances from bassist Katie Ernst, vocalist Sharonay Wade, and pianist Redwood. Now I'm thrilled to recognize Amina Claudine Myers. A true multi-talent, a pianist, organist, singer, composer, a choral director. Amina grew up in the rural hamlet of Blackwell, Arkansas, where she absorbed the sounds of everyday life, birds, crickets, and the sorrow songs she heard in church. Taking a piano as a child, she learned gospel, blues, and Chopin etudes. Then moving to Chicago in 1963, she was ready to swing. She played with Gene Emmons and Sonny Stitt and was an early member of the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, collaborating with Muhal Richard Abrams, Anthony Braxton, and other fearless innovators. After moving to New York in 1976, her reputation kept growing as she led her own bands and toured internationally with Archie Shepp and Charlie Hayden. As technically accomplished as she is, her music is always about the feeling. She sings real blues, real gospel, and sometimes her performances go in unexpected places. Wherever she lands, she's always living inside the music, and she's never far from her roots. Jumping in the Sugar Bowl is the title of one of her best-known tunes, and the name of that circle game she played with schoolmates was A Little Girl. Through her music, Amina Claudine Myers carries us across space and time. Her music heals, She lifts us up with her message of love. Let's learn more about Amina in this short film.
But jazz opens up the music so many ways that it can be a healing force to people, because all the different moods that come from that music. I was born in Blackwell, Arkansas. It's 50 miles northwest of Little Rock. As I got older, I realized that was a wonderful life in the country. I rode my grandfather's horse without saddle. We go pick pecans across the highway. All of those things were what inspired me today. That country living. The stars at night is just beautiful. That country life was the best thing for me. The person that introduced me to music was named Buford, my great uncle, Uncle Buford. Uncle Buford, he loved music. He would go singing Love Lifted Me. And he started me on music. I got into jazz when I got into college. I went to college, I got 2 small scholarships in 1959 to go to Philander Smith College in Little Rock, Arkansas. In my second year, I moved out to the city, and this young lady came up to me. Her name was Gloria Salter from Detroit. She says, I have a gig for you, but it's playing in a nightclub. I said, girl, I can't play in no nightclub. She said, yes, you can. Pays $5 a night. So that's when I started jazz. Then I was going to Louisville, Kentucky in the summertime, and the drummer lived in Lexington, Kentucky. He says, I got a gig for you, but it's playing the organ. I can't play no organ. He said, yes, you can. The pedals are like the keyboard. I moved to Chicago around 1963. So Ajaramu, whose name was Gerald Donovan at that time, asked me to be in his group. He was a member of the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. AACM was developed in Chicago, Illinois. Muhar Richard Abrams had an experimental band. These were musicians that wanted to write music and use their own style and have it performed. That's how the AACM was developed. You have to be invited into the AACM. You can't go and join. I was selected, voted in to become a member. So when I got in, I had to write music and perform. I said, wow, that was a challenge. Writing for big band, I started writing for big band, and the AACM musicians would play the music. And that's how I learned how to write. But by being in the AACM, I started wanting to open up the music. Instead of just playing, repetition of playing, just open it up and let it open up more and expose it more, do more things when you open the music up. That's what I want to do. I'm playing jazz, going to Europe, touring. Generation 4 began around 2019 to honor the gospel singers of the 50s, like Clara Ward, the Caravan. You don't hear about those singers, the Davis sisters. They were the beginning, I call it the classical gospel period. And Generation 4, we were singing songs, traditional songs that were happening during the past. Be saved now. Do you want to be saved? Jazz, gospel, and blues comes together in my music. So I just feel like as a singer, as a musician, you can do what you want to do, whatever the Spirit tells you to do. Whatever you feel like you want to do, there's no holding back. Feel free.
Please welcome Amina Claudine Myers on piano, organ, and vocals. On bass, Jerome Harris. And on drums, Thurman Barker.
Jumping in the sugar bowl, jump, jump, jump. Jumping in the sugar bowl, jump, jump, jump. Jumping, sugar bowl, jump, jump, jump. Jumping in the 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 sugar bowl, jump, jump, jump. Sugar bowl, split it in the mirror, split it in the up, split it in yang, jumping, jump, jumping, jump, jumping, jumping, sugar bowl. Jump, jump, jumping in the sugar bowl, jump, jumping in the sugar bowl, jump, jumping in the sugar bowl. Jumping in the sugar bowl, jump, jump, jump. 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 Thank you. have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy upon us. Have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy. Have. Have mercy upon us. Have mercy upon us. Have mercy upon us. Have mercy. 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 have mercy upon us, on us. Thank you, Mr. Jerome Harris. On bass, voice, guitar, Mr. Thurman Barker, voice and percussion, both composers. Thank you.
And now, accepting her award, Amina Claudine Myers.
I am very honored to receive the Jazz Masters Award from the National Endowment for the Arts, the NEA. To receive this honor is an inspiration for me to continue on my journey with more faith, knowing that audiences are listening to my music and are being inspired and feeling the love that music represents. Thank you. I would like to thank the NEA Chair, Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson, Miss Ann Meyer Baker, Music and Opera Director, and all of the wonderful staff, including Miss Paige Lester, line producer, and Miss Wendy Dubnar, company manager. Thank you to the members of the staff that videoed and recorded interviews and excerpts of concerts. There are more staff members that contributed to making this ceremony a success, and I thank them all. To be among many great jazz artists, past and present, is a great honor for me. And I hope that my music will continue to inspire, show, and bring love to those who hear the music, and remind us that the experiences living in many forms helps us in our spiritual growth as we continue our journey. I thank God, my ancestors, teachers, and the music community, and those who believe in me to select me as a jazz master. Thank you.
Hold on a sec. All right. At the age of selfies, right? Was I lying? Isn't this a great show? Trumpeter and composer Terence Blanchard is among the most ambitious and visionary figures in American music. He came up with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers in the early 1980s, and today leads one of the most respected working bands in the business. It was Blakey who encouraged him to compose, to be a leader, to be fearless, and he has done just that. He has scored more than 50 television shows and films. His many collaborations with director Spike Lee, and they include The Five Bloods, Malcolm X, and When the Levees Broke, which documents the post-Katrina tribulations in New Orleans, Terence's hometown. An heir to the great New Orleans trumpet lineage, he is the son of an amateur baritone singer. His dad loved opera and would be so proud of his son. Terence Blanchard is the composer of 2 operas, Champion, which was performed here at the Kennedy Center by the Washington National Opera in 2017, and Fire Shut Up in My Bones. Both premiered at, Both premiered at Opera Theater of St. Louis and then presented to critical acclaim at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. And you can hear Fire Shut Up in My Bones at the end of this month at another venue. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it, but it sounds like Mathmore, okay? Just saying. All right. But don't miss it. It's an opportunity to check it out. It's a beautiful work. When Fire Shut Up in My Bones opened in New York in 2021, Terrence became the first Black composer ever to have a work stage at the Metropolitan Opera. He is a pioneer, an activist, and he's always asking what's next. Last year, he accepted another challenge, becoming the executive artistic director of SF Jazz in San Francisco, one of the world's foremost presenters of the music. Don't put me in a box, he says. See me as I am. So let's enjoy this film about the great Terrence Blanchard.
The arts really help us develop another side of our brain. I'd like to think that it helps us to develop the compassionate side of us. You know, New Orleans is one of those cities where either you're a musician or you have been heavily affected by the music. When I began with Roger Dickinson, you know, when I was a kid, that was an amazing time in my life. He taught me in such a way where everything that I had written or would write, I had to explain. Melody, counterlines, bass lines, I had to explain where they came from. There had to be some relevance to the original musical idea, which really started to make me understand about, you know, being concise. And that's what teachers do. That's what the good ones do. When it came time to go to college, I looked at a lot of schools. And what it really boiled down to was who were the trumpet teachers. I stayed with Paul Jeffries before school started. And he was playing in Lionel Hampton's band at the time. And he took me on one of the gigs and told me to bring my horn. And the band is setting up and, you know, some of the trumpet players asked me to pull out my horn and play. And then Lionel Hampton walked up behind me and goes, "Hey man, let me hear you play a blues with the piano player." So I played the blues with him, and the next thing you know, I was in the band. It was an education, being around those guys, you know, because they would all play on a high level, you know, everybody in that group. And I was the youngest guy in the group. And, you know, and it was interesting because they treated me with respect, but they treated me like a pro, like they had expectations. And I think that band really helped prepare me to be in Art Blakey's band, you know, after that, because I was getting training and learning how to elevate myself by being around those guys. It was a big transition going from Lionel Hampton to Art Blakey because, you know, the big band, you know, I'm in the section. I maybe get 1 or 2 solos a night, you know. With that small ensemble, you have a lot more responsibility. It was exciting, though, at the same time, you know, because I'm playing with one of my heroes. There was no boundaries for him. So I tell people all the time, even though I was in that band for 4 years, I felt like I aged by 40. So when it comes to, you know, film scoring, I mean, really, my job is to help a director tell a story the best way they see fit. Within that approach, there can be variables, obviously, you know. But that's the great thing about working with Spike. Spike, man, that dude, he respects all of the different crafts that it takes to make a movie. I wrote A Tale of God's Will, a requiem for Katrina. I still get emotional thinking about it. Just seeing all that type of stuff in your hometown is something you never imagine, you never want to see again, but then it just frustrates you. It just makes you angry. When Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans and there was talk of like taking music out of the schools, I lost it. I'm like, who would ever think of such a thing? So for me, arts and education is vital. It's vital because music education is not just about creating musicians, but it's about creating a community that really appreciates the arts. And that's what my life kind of turned around in terms of why I create music. When you see the power in it and how it can help people deal with these tough topics like this, you start to feel a responsibility to address these things, you know, because all of my mentors are gone. You look around and you go, well, who else is here but us? When it came to writing opera, that was not something that was even on the plate whatsoever. I said, Roger, these people asking me to write an opera, I don't know what to do. And he said, trust your training. He said, don't write an opera, tell a story. And once I started, it was such a journey because I didn't know what I was doing. But I kept saying to myself, just write what feels right. The job at SF Jazz for me was really attractive because I wanted to be a destination spot. I want people from all over the world to come to San Francisco and check out SF Jazz. We are already well entrenched in the community. So when you talk about why I'm there, man, it's because the sky's the limit. The tradition in jazz is to break tradition. You know what I mean? That's what our tradition is. We all just trying to be creative and enjoy this ride. That's it. I mean, you know, so why limit myself to one thing?
Please welcome Terence Blanchard on trumpet, Taylor Eichste on piano, Charles Artura on guitar, David Genier Jr. on electric bass, and Jalid Petinad on drums. And now, accepting his award, Terrence Blanchard.
I forgot I was supposed to do this part. You gonna keep up? I may throw you a curve here and there, you know what I mean? I don't even know where to start with this. You know, when I first heard about this award, my immediate thought was they must be running out of names. But then I looked at who was also being honored, and I'm floored with who my name is being associated with. You know, Gary Bartz, Willard, Amina, and I want to thank the NEA for this honor. You know, we never get into this business to be recognized like this, but it is always an honor and a pleasure when it happens, because, you know, you start to feel like your music is affecting people. And one of the things that I've always been moved by is how music can go beyond language, it can go beyond cultures, it can go beyond countries, and touch people in ways that sometimes, you know, our debates can't. And I've been always moved and inspired by that. Once Hurricane Katrina hit, it turned my life around in terms of why I create music. When I was a young kid, when I was with Art Blakey, I was just trying to belong. And I was trying to prove that I belonged and was worthy of the accolades that were given to me when I was a young musician. But now, it's really about trying to help people heal, you know. I think I have seen what music has done for so many people. There was a young kid who came to one of my shows, and he burst into tears and he said, "You are my Michael Jordan." You know, and yes, thank you. I'm just saying it to give you an example of what has happened to me over my life. You know, with my opera Going to the Met, Fire Shut Up in My Bones, a guy came up to me in tears and said, "Thank you, I'm a survivor." You know, those are the things that mean a lot to me, because, you know, music has helped me heal in my life. You know, one of the things I think about us being artists is that we're some sick individuals. That's why we're here to begin with. We have a lot of issues and problems. You know, but I have to thank my best friend, my wife, Robin, who's in the audience tonight. Everyone deserves to have a Robin. And what I mean by that, when I'm at a point where I don't think I can do certain things, or when I'm doubting my abilities, she's the person that makes me confident or makes me try and pushes me forward, you know. And without her, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be happening, you know. And I'm also very blessed for my parents and the teachers that I've had, you know. That's why I'm a big advocate for education. It's really important. You know, I didn't grow up in a poor neighborhood. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. But I grew up in one of those neighborhoods where the people from the poor neighborhood was moving and they brought their bad kids with them. So there was a lot going on in my middle-class neighborhood that shouldn't have been going on. I told you I was going to throw you a curve. But what my teachers did for me was make me think of a bigger world, and think of a bigger world outside of my neighborhood. And for that, I'm always grateful. You know, you heard in the clip where Roger told me, "Trust your training." That was not the answer I wanted to get. I was like, "Man, tell me what to write, dude. How do you get from the beginning, middle, and the end?" Trust your training is not something that's given me a lot of confidence, brother. And then he sent me to study with another great teacher named Hale Smith, and I was talking about him yesterday. And and I'll just tell you this story, and then I'll get out the way. But I remember Hale in one of my first lessons, he said, you're trying to control this amount of space without having the ability to control this amount of space. And what that meant to me was like, know your craft, deal with the details, know all the ins and outs, not so you can be one of those verbose people who talk about it, so that you can speak in a clear manner and in a more in-depth manner to the people that you are performing for. And that is where I am in my life with the operas and the stuff that I do with my band. It's really about bringing music to you guys and hopefully having the music do what Art Blakey used to always say. Music should wash away the dust of everyday life. Thank you.
I think one of the things that's special about tonight, and this is not scripted, is that the intense presence of the need for healing and the way that this music heals, all music and the arts. But that's really striking tonight. And so is family. Everyone's mentioned their families, their role, whether they're here tonight or the role they played in their own upbringing. And education, passing it on. You can't hold on to it. It's got to be passed on. So can you give it a hand for that, man? Because that's just, it's so important. And now we've got a surprise for you. Okay, the Kennedy Center is in the midst of Ellington 125, a celebration of the incomparable Duke Ellington, who was born 125 years ago this month, right here in Washington, D.C. I'm going to read a little bit about what, all month long, we have stuff going here at the Kennedy Center. But they printed it so small, man. And it's not on the prompter, so, and I'm a man of a certain age, so I got to pull out my glasses. All of this stuff is in programs that you can pick up on the way out, in all of the, in this theater on the way out, or just look online. I'm just going to read off what they have going, and then look it up, because I'm stretching for them to change up the set, man. Next week, the Post-Classical Ensemble is going to perform the concert music of Duke Ellington, and they're going to have I'm honored to be able to be featured. I'm playing congas with them next week, so yeah, thank you. No, it's a big deal for me. The Dover Quartet is coming. Essentially Ellington, the Jefferson High School Jazz Band is going to perform. These are all throughout the month. Tamika Reed, don't miss that one, celebrating Duke Ellington. Are we cool? Okay, all right, I'm on time. And then let me finish it. Thanks. Okay, so there's 3 keys at Ellington: Justin Hoffman, Jose Andre Montano, and Matthew Whitaker, 3 pianists, right? A way cool swing dance party with Mercedes Ellington, who's Duke Ellington's granddaughter, featuring the Jazz Houston Orchestra. There's going to be a documentary, On the Road with Duke Ellington, film documentary, post-panel discussion, and the great Cyrus Chestnut from right down the road in Baltimore. Ellington Sacred Concert. You don't want to miss that. Okay. We've got an all-star band to play some Ellington for you. Please welcome vocalist Charnay Wayne. Saxophonist, hello. Saxophonist Lakeisha Benjamin. Pianist Redwood, bassist Katie Ernst, and drummer Camille Gaynor again. They're going to be playing Duke Ellington's It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swang.
Come on, Washington, D.C. We celebrated the NEA Jazz Masters Class.
yeah. Give it up again for Amina Claudine Myers, y'all. Terrence Blanchard, y'all. Gary Bartz, y'all. Willard Jenkins, y'all. Y'all better get ready. Let's go. Well, it makes no difference if it's sweet or hot. Take that rhythm, give it everything you got. Well, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
masses right now. So all